Welcome. Happy Tuesday, everybody, and welcome to another episode of My Way, conversations with entrepreneurs doing business outside the box. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas, and it's super exciting to be back with you for another episode today. It feels like a million years since Project Joy has been on hiatus since our move. And, we have the Breakthrough Show on Fridays and everything else, and then Throwback Thursdays only once a month. It feels like years in between our My Way episodes. So I'm really excited to be back with you tonight. You're going to love this episode. Let me tell you. Our guest this evening has the most delicious energy. When we met initially, we could have just recorded that and that could have been the episode and it would have been great. But if you weren't already vibing high before it now, you will be by the end of this show. She's a best-selling author and someone who uses her own methods to help people attain their highest potential without sacrificing joy for success. You guys know I love some joy, so let me tell you. Well, hit your heart button, hit the share button as we welcome Jen Piceno to the show. Welcome, Jen.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me here this evening.
I'm so excited to have you here. I'm glad we finally get to do this because it's been 100 years since we talked the first time.
It feels like so much has happened. It's beautiful, though. I'm glad to be back in space with you.
Yes, you too. Well, I let everybody know where you're joining from in the world this evening, and I'm excited to dive in and hear a little bit about your story. And of course, we'll be talking about doing things your way, our way, my way, because that's what the show's about as well.
Awesome. Well, I'm calling in from Atlanta, Georgia.
Love it. And so we weren't that far apart before, and now I moved. So we're
You got out of the heat. You got out of the heat and left me behind.
Yes. Let me tell you something. It was 101 the day we left Alabama. It was like a sign to get out, like go. I love it. Frank's joining us this evening. Hey, Frank, it's good to see you. Miss Mandy is here. Hi, Miss Mandy. It's good to see you. If you're joining us live or on the replay, I'd love for you to head over to that comment section and be sure to chat with us throughout the episode. And then, of course, we'll come back on the replay as well. So Jen, obviously you're on the show because you don't do things your way. You just do what everybody else tells you to do, right?
Oh, no, it's not in my blood or my bones. I've always been the one that went outside the box.
Yeah.
Always, even from a very young age. And it took me a little bit down the road before I realized that is a strength and not a weakness. So many people tried to contain me, and, I was always the rebel in the group and all of those things. And I was a people pleaser. I went through that phase of life. I think a lot of us do. And when I realized how that was holding me back from really claiming the power within me, and all of the things and all the ideas and all the dreams I wanted to do and make happen required me to be that wild child, that person that was going to go way outside of the lines and live life vibrantly. And that it really is my superpower. I can't do things the way people tell you to do or should do. And it's been really great trying to align with other coaches and individuals like yourself that see that and know that and own that. Yeah. Because what I found is when people like us gather, we move mountains. And it is just like, I am constantly amazed by the things that women do when we come together, and amazing men as well. But it seems like my little tribe tends to be these wild-hearted women that are like giving the middle finger to you're telling me to do what? Now let me just prove you wrong.
Yes. There's a fire there. There's a fire there underneath that happens. And let me ask you this, because I'm always curious, and this is something we actually talk about on the Breakthrough Show quite a bit, is do you know where that comes from with you? Do you know where that kind of fire, that kindling that just never seems to go out comes from within you?
That's such a good question. For me, it is, I have to say it's the inner divinity within me. I didn't know that, of course, when I was younger, But when I stay in soul alignment, I crush time, I crush limitations, I crush fears, everything dissolves. So that's where I feel like when I stay aligned with that, my truest, highest self, then I eliminate excuses. But I also erase the lines that other people tell me of you can only do it if you go A, B, C, D, E. And I'm like, but I want to start with Z.
Yeah.
And I'm going to
Can we
reverse
go backwards?
this thing, and I'm going to skip a lot of steps
Yeah.
because I'm not going to spend that much time doing it. And when I started doing that and not feeling like, I don't know, you go through those phases where people really, really push your buttons that it has to be this way or you're not successful. Instead, I've just reworked what success is to me. I've reworked what motherhood is to me, being a mom and an entrepreneur, what that looks like for me. Like I've just redesigned life, and I'm constantly like an artist making it better. Like I think that was one of the things that held me back early in years is that, you know, we set these 5-year goals and 10-year goals, and then we stay fixed to that. And now I find it really fascinating and a lot of fun just to tear down my own walls and say, you know what, that's what I thought I wanted, but I'm going to wreck that.
Right.
And I'm going to do something even bigger or something better. And if it doesn't light me up and give me joy, that's my red flag.
Yep.
That's the voice I listen to. It's not a particular way of somebody else that they got success that way. And that could be true for them. But my way is all about simplified, and I'm going to have fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And when you were talking, I love how one of the things that you included was your own excuses. Because when we talk about doing things our way on this show, a lot of times that involves that outside chatter, those other people that we got into business and they're like, you can't do that. And we're like, watch me and all of that. But a lot of times it's our own beliefs, it's our own excuses, it's our own expectations for how we think things should be. So I love that you included that excuses in there, because a lot of times doing it our way means shattering our own boxes of what is there, right?
And I think that actually, at least in my life, has been even bigger sometimes than what other people say, because it's easy to turn off that noise. You know, if you get really good at setting boundaries and you practice those types of things, but that inner voice never goes away. You live with it. It's always there. So you need to learn how to turn the channel or turn down the volume and be in those situations and places and spaces with other like-minded people that are going to be like, girl, you got this.
Right.
Like, because the voice is always going to sneak back in,
right?
But you always have full control of what to do with it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that so much. There's so many different rabbit holes that I want to go down with you this evening, but I want to kind of backtrack really quick and let everybody know what exactly it is you do in your work. I know that you're an author. Your company is called Gypsy Moon, correct?
Correct. Yes.
I love that. First of all, like you could have been qualified for the Breakthrough Show Network just Gypsy Moon. Okay, you're in. Don't care what you do, but you're in. But tell everybody what it is exactly that you do, how you help people in this world and all that good stuff, Jen.
Well, really it's taking the 5 elements of life and aligning those with wealth. So when I talk about wealth in this new book that came out, is called Wealth Codes, it really is about taking these 5 areas of life and being wealthy in each one. This was a way that I had to redefine what success meant to me. Because when I grew up, that was never explained in school. It was never a part of the 5-year, 10-year plan. It was, you had financial goals and you got a house and you got a car and the 2.5 children or whatever it may be. And so this practice of being wealthy and abundant and prosperous in each area of life, that's where it comes into play, where we're not sacrificing our joy for success. We're claiming abundance and prosperity in all forms, all the time. So to get there, it takes some unprogramming, undoing, unwinding, crushing and dissolving of fears and beliefs. So there's, it's multifaceted.
Right. I agree 100%. And you mentioning that, we're not taught certain things. is I think such a huge part of this. We're not taught a lot of things, and then a lot of things we are taught, like you said, have to be undone. We have to kind of go back and decide, okay, what works for us here, and this is not aligned, or what have you. When you talk about wealth, let's dig into a little bit more to what that means. Are you just talking about money? And if you're not just talking about money, talk to me about what wealth really means to you.
Yes. So for me, no, it is not just money, and it used to be.
Mm.
So I've had it, I've not had it, and I've figured out what it means to me now. And wealth to me, or money without my relationship being in alignment, does not feel wealthy. It feels like pure torture, right? Wealth with having money and my health being in the trenches, that's not good either, right? So it's taking the 5 areas of life is what I focus on, is financial wealth or material wealth, relationships. And with relationships, I include the relationship with ourself in that, because a lot of people are really great with being like the person in popularity and everything outside,
Yeah.
but that part inside is still broken and wounded. So there's relationships. And then the next part is freedom, which means different things to different people. For me, it's freedom of expression. It's freedom of a location, like me being a mom and being able to do what I do and homeschool my child, and to me,
Right.
that's freedom. And having options and choices is a part of that. Then vitality. For me, that's energetics, all energetics, the energetic in our home, our business, our life, and our health and wellness. And then spirituality.
Mm. I
So
love
for
that.
me, those 5 elements, they also, you'll love this part, but going into the sacred elements with earth, water, air, fire, and spirit, it all coincides. And when we bring that all into balance, we have that circle that just feels good and yummy and delicious.
Right, right. Absolutely. And I think I love how you have those different aspects, because it really does correspond with those things that we see in nature. And that's what makes everything, like you said, in balance. And it's never just one thing. No matter, I could ask on this show, on any of my other shows, I could ask everybody the same questions of like, what is that fire underneath? What is that, that thing that keeps you going? How did you get here? And it's never just one thing,
No,
ever. It's always a
no, because one
combination of things.
affects the other. They pull
Right.
on each other, right? Because we're not one thing. And then we pull that into community, because of course there's more categories under those, like relationships goes into how I show up in my community, how I show up in my family, all of those things.
Right.
So we start
Right.
stretching and we start living life. For me, what's really important is when you start aligning all of those, life becomes ceremony, life
Mm,
becomes sacred. Everyday objects have more meaning and purpose. So then that transforms into how I parent, into conscious parenting, how I show up in my business, how I treat my clients. Is it heartfelt? Is it soul aligned? It's not transactional for me, although money is a big part of it, because when I am soul aligned and I am working in a place of integrity and I'm making money, big money, little money, whatever,
yeah.
I do better things and make better decisions with that money, which impacts the world, the communities, and. So it
Yeah.
all goes together, because as we come into balance and soul alignment in these other areas, it changes money and gives it soul.
Mm,
That's really what I am out to do on this mission, is let's get it all starts with us individually, and then that goes out into households and out into communities. And when we start stretching that and pushing that, money starts doing really, really good things.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I want to be able to give and give and give more, and I can't do that without taking care of my own stuff here.
Right, right. Donnell, by the way, good to see you, Donnell, and also Juju as well. Thanks for being here tonight. I like that, making big money.
Yes, Danielle.
Donnell's feeling it, feeling it out there. Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful energy to be in. And I think that that monetary portion, especially for those of us that are creatives, spiritual entrepreneurs, that money portion, it can be a challenge for us because we just want to do our soul work. We just want to save the world. And I think the piece that we're missing, something that changed it for me, was when somebody was like, imagine how much more you could do.
Exactly. I think for people in this arena, I didn't see it as much when I was in the dance world and I was a professional dancer, and that was easy transactions. You had.
Wait, I did not know you were a dancer. Are you going to dance for us tonight?
I am not. That's another show.
That's another episode.
Yes, but that world was different, right? You invoiced, it was gigged, you knew what you were doing. But when we start doing soul work, it is sometimes complicated for healers and creatives to charge for their work. And I think part of that is they're not understanding that they're not necessarily changing all hours for dollars. And we were raised to trade hours for dollars, and that was the transactional. But we do so much more than that. Like, we're healing childhood trauma, we're healing addiction, we're healing these big, huge things. That has more value than an hour session, right? A 60-minute session. And when we do that and we heal that, what that person now goes out in the world and does, that's where we start changing lives. It has a ripple effect. Right. And one goes to the next, into the next, into the next. And that, to me, is where the magic happens. Right. And again, bringing the financial piece into that, when I charge appropriately, right, where it's fair and it's energetic exchange, then I'm able to do things in the world that I want to do. Like, there's certain organizations that I really love supporting that I've always supported. Right. But the amount I can support them has changed drastically.
Right.
And I want that to keep getting bigger and bigger.
Right. I love it. I love it. And I just resonate so much with what you're saying because it's just not something that I realized until later on. I didn't put the pieces together. I just wanted to do what I wanted to do and, create a world of shiny, happy people, but I didn't see the value in the world of shiny, happy people. And it can be hard to find that sweet spot for us each as individuals between not charging at all and going, well, this is priceless.
Yeah.
That's a big gap.
That's where the energetics come in. So when I say that's one of the categories I like to work on, it's because what happened to me early on is I found these great coaches that started teaching me about money, but they were just instantly like, oh, you need to double your prices. Energetically, I couldn't get behind that yet.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if you double your price, you're not going to sell it if you energetically are not in integrity with it. So it has to be in alignment. And that's where I feel like it's very, very important for people to be in soul alignment and not just price something because the business down the street is priced at that. Unless you're, when I was doing corporate, there are pieces and puzzles that you are marching, you're staying competitive. Right. But when we're talking this kind of business, I feel like it really has to be something that is soul led with your price structure. Because if you can't get behind it with your energy, with your heart, and trusting that doesn't always make sense. It doesn't always make logical sense. But when you trust that, then sales become easy. So easy. Because the doubt goes away.
Yeah. Yeah. Mandy loves what you're saying, by the way. She said she needed to hear that tonight. And I told you guys, if you weren't in the vibe when you got here, you're going to be here by the time you leave.
Thank you for being here, Mandy.
Going back to something that you were saying earlier about working on yourself, because that's such a huge portion of any of this work that we're doing, especially those of us who are in the world doing that spiritual work, doing that energetic work. It's so important that we continue to work on ourselves. But I'm wondering if you feel like there's a line, like we keep, working on ourselves and making ourselves better. Do you feel like there's a line to that of where you're like, okay, I have to stop picking at myself here. Like I'm striving for perfection instead of, just that next level?
I think that there's no such thing as perfection, number one. So I think it depends who the person is. Like, as long as you have that awareness, there is no perfect. We are human. There's always going to be things that happen. The part that I feel like can be an addiction almost. So everything that we do, whether it's food or drinking or a spiritual path, can become addictive. You have to have that awareness and balance with anything you're doing. For me, it's not so much about the nitpicking. It's about expanding your awareness with things. and having grace for yourself. So it's knowing it, receiving it, and understanding it. And
Right.
when you understand it, you can embody it. What I don't like to see, which is so common, and I did this myself, is where we are such seekers and we're taking all the classes and doing all the things and doing all the retreats, and we're not embodying the work.
Right.
And the embodiment piece is where, that's the magic sauce.
Yeah.
That's like where it all is, because when you start bringing it in, then you will feel that you don't have to go so much outside of yourself. And it's a fine line, and it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
So I don't know that it's not, if you can understand, no, nothing is perfect. No relationship is perfect. No business is perfect. No child is perfect. We are human.
Right.
And we learn through that. So we don't want it to be perfect. It would be so boring.
Yeah, I agree.
Those of us that like to do things our way would be totally bored. Like, you need those things to happen, because that's what makes you push through your own edges.
Right.
And it brings you to the next set of people that you get into communication with, the next mentor, the next healer, the next show, whatever it may be. It leads us to the next thing. So I believe that those things are our divine clues.
Right.
It's the way that we are led, even when we think we're not leadable. So
Right.
like, I'm a rebel, but I'm always being led.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's wonderful. And talking about the shiny object syndrome, oh my gosh, it's something that I see so often. And I have people in my life, and if you're watching and you feel called out, I'm sorry. But I have people in my life who, it's nobody here, by the way, just so you can feel good about yourselves out there. It's nobody here. But it's constantly like, oh, I'm taking this class, I'm taking this course, and I'm doing this, and I'm sitting here thinking in my head, like, I haven't even seen you implement the last class that you took. What's happening here? And I tend to be like, I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn new things. Love it. And so my growth has happened in the last several years of going, do you need to take on something else right now? Are you going to, yes, learning this is great. What are you going to do with it? What's your plan?
Do with it?
Yeah.
And you'll always get something out of it, even if you don't give 100%. There's always a nugget or a person or a reason. Yeah. But I think where it gets destructive is when we were just collecting it and grabbing it, because that can be a coping mechanism.
Right.
Life is rocky. Things aren't going well. So we go outside of ourselves. Again, that brings us back to awareness. So we start collecting things because the busyness keeps us from having to deal with what's actually going on. So it's
Can I just tell you the level of perfection for this conversation right now? Like, you have no idea. No idea. So good. Because not just with myself, but I know a lot of people who started to feel recently kind of an antsy feeling, like something's got to change here. Something needs to, changing things up a little bit. And a lot of it for me, and a lot of my friends that are out here watching this evening can attest to the fact that I looked and I realized I was taking on so much stuff because I was miserable where I was. Miserable. And so being over a whole bunch of things and taking a lot more on my plate was a great way to ignore the fact that I was miserable. And as soon as I took myself out of that situation, I moved to a place where I literally could be doing nothing, and I am joyful all the time right now. I was sick last week and I was joyful as I don't know what. But it's a situation where I was like, just had that realization of going, I took on all that stuff because I was miserable. And how often do we do that? Especially, not calling out the ladies here, but I see this with women all the time.
It is. I mean, and I see it with men as well. It's in both areas, because you see a lot of workaholics.
Yeah.
That's what it is, right? They're if you don't want to go home and be at home, then we need to look at work. Like, really, really. And I think I think things got rocked with COVID because of that, because people were at home and they had to deal with their stuff. And it was such a blessing and a gift, but it was also it was like a volcano for a lot of people, because they were forced into seeing and feeling and dealing with things.
Right. Yeah, it was definitely something that we saw, and we're still watching as people are trying to find a quote unquote new normal for themselves, and whether it's going back to work, or kids going back to school, or a lot of people got into new businesses and things like that as well. There's like this newness there, and it's trying to figure out who they are again, and I'm just seeing a lot of that changing and transitioning happening with a lot of people right now.
I think that's the beauty in it, though, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a redesign.
Right.
And I think a lot of people didn't have the awareness prior to that happening of what it is to be home, or that they could be home, or that they could do a business on Zoom. I redesigned my whole business.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people did. We restructured how we do a lot of things. And it's better, and we keep making it better and better and better, and stretching those lines. Like, what can we do? Well, okay, now we're almost 100% virtual. Wonder if we want to just go to Mexico and live for 6 months. Like, why not? There's different things that we can play with, but it's all ever changing. And I think that's the beauty of it. If we can find that peace in any situation, no matter what it is, there's always something that is there to stretch us, to teach us, and to help us grow.
Right. I love that. Going along that same lines, I asked, we have a Soul Saturday Morning Coffee chat every Saturday in our Discord community for the Breakthrough Show Network. And we were talking this last weekend about change. And one of the things that I asked, though, was, what's something about you? What's something about little Jen that is still the same now, though? Like, you may have changed in all these ways and grown and learned, like we do, like we're supposed to, but what is something that you can see that's still there that maybe you saw when you were younger?
Besides that, I'm rambunctious.
Hey,
dirty hair, messy hair, dirty feet. I use my energy. I didn't understand it like I am like now. I'm a master of energy, but being excited about something, I can do what other people think is not possible. And I've always been a prover of, let me prove you wrong, but I had to have the excitement behind it. So for some people, that word is discipline. That word shuts me down. I need to be excited about it. It needs to light me up and turn me on. And if I have that, then I can do anything and I become unstoppable.
If you're out in the audience this evening and you are a rambunctious person, I would love for you to put a star down in the chat, because I want to see how many rule breakers we have out there this evening, because I feel that way too. Anytime someone and that's part of where the passion comes from for this particular series that we're doing of My Way, is that I just don't want to be put in a box. Don't tell me I can't. Don't tell me that that's not the way to do it. And I just feel so stifled by that. Let me ask you this, because I don't even think that I've asked anybody this on this series yet, but I feel like you're just the right person to answer this question maybe. What do you think it is that about the people that do the stifling? Maybe the people that say you have to follow the rules, you have to do this, do you think that it's necessary for those people to be on the planet and be the disciplinarians, or do you think that maybe they just haven't come into their own? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
It depends on the person. So that it depends on the person. I believe a lot of times it's true to them. It's true to them. Like what I've done in the last couple of years, I've done 5 books. People in my family think that would have been impossible. Right. So now I take that as, well, okay, it can be impossible for you, but let me show you how this works. Right. So, but it could be true to them, or they just don't understand, because you can only see things from the perspective that you're in. And so many people are looking at things like close up, whereas I feel like people like us that are willing to go outside that line, I think of it as looking at it as a bird's eye view. Like if you're an eagle and you're flying through the sky, you see the horizon, you see what is possible, you see all the vibrant colors. But if you're just standing here and you're just seeing the palm of your hand, that's all you can see. There's no room for that growth. There's no room for those ideas. It is one way, right? And then some people just need to play it completely safe because that's what makes them feel safe. For me, that feels restrictive. It feels horrible.
Right. It's so true because I mean, so there's a meditation that I've done with clients in the past, and I've shared it several times before, and I called it a mountaintop meditation. It was a guided visualization, and the whole purpose of that meditation was to take people out of the moment, because we get so anxious when we feel like, look, it's either yes or no, good or bad, right or wrong, you know, black or white, and then we panic, and then we're like, oh God, and it's just it's a bad situation. And so the purpose of this mountaintop meditation was to bring expansion and to go, okay, like you're talking about, seeing the wide range of colors, seeing all, it's not just black and white. There are so many options. And so when somebody comes into the picture and they're like, but you can only do it like this, I bring myself right up onto that little mountain. I'm like, no.
And I mean, that's the thing, is it's not black or white, it's gray.
Yeah.
Like there's always that in between. And I don't think there's just one way to do anything. I just don't. And when I come into relationship with somebody that tells me that, or they push that direction, I'm done. I'm like, I need to work with creatives or people that see outside the line, color outside the line, that neurodiversity. They can see things differently.
Right.
Kids are phenomenal at this. You have a problem, ask a kid. A 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, they will come up with the most amazing solutions if you allow them.
Yeah.
Because they're not in that box.
Yeah.
Now the trick is not to put yourself in the box.
Yeah. Well, and you know, it made me sad earlier today. So I had a bag of pistachios, and, you know, every now and then you get a pistachio in the bag that hasn't opened, and I cannot for the life of me, I never get it. So so my daughter was like, can I have one? I said, I'll tell you what, you can get this open. You can have the pistachio that's in there. But I'm a horrible person. And so but my whole purpose of this was to get her to think, if she can't use her hands for it, because I could have gone and gotten something and cracked it open and eaten it. But I was like, you know, get her to think, if you can't use your hand for it. And she got very upset and very frustrated because she wanted the pistachio now. And she could not get it out, and she got herself so upset that she couldn't think of something to break it open. And so I'm like, okay, let's calm down and let's think about some of the different tools that are maybe around the kitchen, or like, you know, because that's the thing, we've gotten to this place as humans where we just want everything right now, and we want everything the way we want it. So now we're going to get all upset and we can't see anymore the range of options we have
all the time. Right. And I think this generation that we're in has created that, so because everything is so fast. Right. Like we're used to it like happening immediately. And I think you have to slow down sometimes to speed up. And that's what I think you taught her, is like, wait, hold on, breathe, think it through, because then you can think, because you have the intellectual part of your brain, you have the emotional part of your brain, and the emotional is very intuitive, but when you're already bzz, 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 then it doesn't function the same way. And same thing with intellect will keep you safe and in the box because it's safe and it doesn't let you go. But if you merge those two and allow them to work together, then magic happens.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so funny that we're talking about, you know, this generation and how things have changed a little bit. And I almost feel really, I've been in this place of nostalgia because I just moved back home to where I grew up. So a lot of my memories of things and places that I go here are those memories from over 20 years ago when we didn't have the kind of things that we have now. And then, you know, we were driving from where my grandmother used to live, to the beach. And I'm like, I used to, at 8 years old, drive all of this way on my bike by myself. And it's like, what? But sometimes I had this moment where I'm like, sometimes things change for good because they need to change, because change is great. We've been talking about that throughout this whole episode tonight. And other times it can be a little bit stifling. And a prime example of this is we had gone to the beach that I grew up on, and there's a rocky shore for a lot of the beach. You have the sandy part of the beach and then just the rocky New England shore. And I used to go down there and I would climb down into the rocks and play in the tide pools. That was one of my favorite things to do as a child, with the little fish that would come up and the hermit crabs and everything else. And now there are signs everywhere that say, don't climb on the rocks. And we were walking by, and I told my youngest, who's 6, I said, I used to go down there when I was little, and and she said, ooh, you can't do that. And I said, I did. And she said, why? And I said, because it was fun. And she said, but you're not allowed to do that. And I said, there were no signs there when I was little. And she said, that's not fair. And she was all upset. So it's like, could we have gotten hurt when we were kids? Absolutely. But I felt like that experience was
we had freedom.
Yes.
We had a lot of freedom. And I have this conversation with a lot of my friends too, because my son has just turned 10. And at that age, I didn't come home until the street lights went off, or you heard the whistle or whatever. And the way things are now, so many of us, like, I don't let him out in the yard by himself. Right. I'm Absolutely. Right there with him everywhere. And that part is, I think, one of the parts that I do wish was different, because I mean, that was my freedom.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be in the house. Kids don't want to leave the house now. It's very confusing to me.
Go outside. Why? Why? It's hot.
Exactly. I don't think we had Minecraft though. I think that's
that's it. That is the devil, and I take part in it, and it's horrible. I love it though. But yeah, like, I think, sometimes things have changed. Like, what is that internal? I mean, I know that you thrive on intuition the way that I do, when it comes to making decisions in your life and your business. But is there anything in particular that is that sign or that specific voice that helps you make that decision of when it's time to hang on to something the way it is and when it's time to let go and change things up?
It's constant listening. And I think that's, everybody has intuitive gifts. Not everybody listens.
Right.
And we're guilty of that too, even being intuitive.
Absolutely.
Like, the busyness. When you go too busy, you don't listen as well. And I think for me, it's constantly asking what that next step is instead of asking, what is this week necessarily? And I do that too, don't get me wrong. But really, it's moment to moment.
Right.
And when I do that, everything flows. But you have to stay grounded and curious and calm to do that. Like, just like with kids, when they have a temper tantrum, when they're in that state, you got to ride the wave for a minute and let them calm down before anything gets in. And I think that we as adults do that too. When life gets so busy and it feels chaotic and everything's coming at you, you go on the defense instead of just calming in and tuning in.
Right.
And the magic of it, of really making soulful decisions, is so simple. We overcomplicate it.
Right.
It really is just listening and feeling and trusting. So you have to listen, you have to feel, you have to trust, and then you take action.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I love it. And sometimes we forget. And sometimes that's okay too, because we're human and we forget to slow down and we forget to be quiet. And then we need to kind of slow down and be quiet.
But it doesn't have to be silent, and everybody's different because they're on a different path, and everybody's spiritual gifts are different the way they come through. I've been teaching psychic development for a long time, so I've got a good sense of how people sense things differently, right? But the way that it works for you, if you can honor that, you either get a tightening in your belly, or you might hear, you might feel, you might get a tingle. If you pay attention to the sensations, and then those become your signs, your warning signs, just like don't go on the rocks, right? If you listen to that, I've seen it save people from car accidents, from really bad contract signings, from all types of things if you tune in and listen. And that goes with every business. It goes with parenting, with marriage, with all of the things. If we will just trust the wisdom that's coming through, and it's available to everybody, every moment, all day, every day. But we have to listen. And so many of it, I was guilty of that. Yeah. You know, like I hear it, I know it, and then I do my own thing.
I just go to the beach at night when it's closed. Nobody sees me go onto the beach.
But the thing is like if you can trust, I think it really is the trust. It's trusting and taking action when what you hear, feel, and know don't make logical sense.
Right.
Because often the soul aligned way, it saves us time, energy, and effort, but it doesn't always make logical sense. Right. And I think that's a hard concept for a lot of humans, because it's not in the boom, 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 right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm excited because you've mentioned that you have books and you had another one come out recently, and I want to talk about that. We're going to take about a 20-second break, and we'll be right back after this to talk about Jen's amazing book. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching the Breakthrough Show Network. Today, we'd like to support our friend over at Nail Beauty by Brittany. Purchase your custom press-on Reiki-infused nails by visiting nailbeautybybrittany.com. Don't forget your discount by using the code BREAKTHROUGH. And now, back to the show. Welcome back to My Way with your host, Jessica Dugas, and our special guest, Miss Jen, this evening. Jen is a multi-time best-selling author, and I'm excited because you have a brand new book digging right into what we've been talking about tonight, about wealth as well. So I'm excited, but tell us a little bit. I mean, did you always picture yourself as an author, or was this like a planned thing?
It was so unplanned. No, I did want to do a book, but full disclosure, I thought it was going to be an international cookbook. That's the book that I thought was going to come out into the world, because that's a passion of mine. And then COVID happened, and I got invited into the first book project, and it just, now I'm on book, I just did book 5. So I didn't expect it. It was like, okay, well, I have the time. Maybe I'll do this thing.
Yeah.
And it started coming through. Again, that was that trusting the intuition thing, though. It was such a strong yes.
Right. I think that's how I felt too when I had done a compilation book back in 2017, which is the precursor to this entire network, how all of this was born. But it was really that I can't think that I'm not supposed to do this, so we just go with it. But how was the experience for you of becoming an author? Like, what is something maybe you learned about yourself in the process?
Oh, it depends on which book.
I know, right?
Something through. So this is the thing that I have learned as far as like leading projects and taking other authors through it too, is that becoming the author is this beautiful expansion of self and business. But part of the beauty, I do nonfiction. So part of the beauty is that it takes you deeper into your own process, and it takes you deeper into embodying the work that you teach. And that was really amazing to take so many authors through that, including myself, because we just went so deep all at the same time. And then we held each other in this whole process, and then we celebrated, and we really did it in a ceremonial way. I'm a priestess, and it was really important for me to do an opening circle and a closing circle, and really holding the intentions of each book. And it just came through, and it was just this big, beautiful, I don't even know how to explain it. It was so yummy and delicious, the whole thing.
Yeah, I love it. It's a beautiful experience to be able to go through and do the process with other people that are doing the same things as well. That was my experience in doing a compilation book as well. But you just had one come out called Wealth Codes. Talk to me about that. What can we find in it? What has been your pride and joy with this last book?
Okay, so Wealth Codes downloaded through me when I was writing Sacred Medicine. So Sacred Medicine came first. And in the middle of that, it's just how spirit works with me. One's coming through while I'm finishing up another. And so it came through, and I've been a teacher of psychic development and in the mystic world, and using that for developing businesses and for developing our own spiritual journey. And what came through is how to align the elements with these areas of life and bringing prosperity through all of them, which is what we talked earlier about on the show. So the book, I did a little bit different this time. I divided it into 5 different sections. So there's money, and then we have relationships, we have freedom, vitality, and spirituality. And then 5 authors wrote a chapter for each one of those sections and gave a sacred strategy to go with their chapter. I also did a little ritual that brings in the element for each one of those sections. So each one has a pre-chapter that helps describe that. If elements are new to you, then you can actually go through and understand what earth actually does and why would you want to understand it? Why would you want to work with it? And what does that have to do with money? It has everything to do with it, because it's our safety, our security. It's bringing in that ancestral wisdom and the strength and all of the things. So really helping people align the spirituality to each area of life so that you're not stuck in the problem or the frustration, and you can stretch through your edges, and doing it in a very soulful, soul aligned way. And being able to go through each of those practices, it really brings in wholeness in all area of life for prosperity. And that's what we want. I don't want you just to have it in one area. I want you to have it everywhere.
Yeah. And I think it being a compilation book makes it really special and enhances the energy of what you're trying to bring across where wealth is concerned. Because even I know through the gratitude experience that I do every November, I can't even put it into words how much more powerful the experience is when there is that group that comes together, and the participation and the people that are just all in that same energy. I mean, you can look at whether we're talking about, religious practices or spiritual practices, or even just business things. The 2 heads are better than one. I mean, it's always just that more expansive energy.
Exactly. And we brought 25 together for each of these books, which is really incredible, because we are anchoring the energy in what we want the outcome to be. It became everything is intentional. That's the way I live my life. It's all about intentions, right? But bringing that in as a group, that it wasn't just a book, it's a mission. And we're out to change lives. And we have an intention for each section, and the book as the whole, and what we want to do in houses and homes and businesses. Like we want it to be a rich experience.
Yeah. What do you hope it would be a main takeaway for people that read Wealth Codes?
I want it to awaken in people whatever is lying dormant. Because everybody has it at their fingertips. It's in your blood and bones. But I think we've taken on so many people. I've done this work for myself for so many years, and I teach what I've done through my own body, my house, my home, and business. And there's ancestral trauma and generational patterning, and there's beliefs that are outdated that are operating our life. So when you want to do it your way, you have to first let go of what's keeping you from doing it your way. And so each one of these sections, I would like people to use it as a reference book. Like if you're really struggling in your relationship, crack open that part of the book first.
Right.
Let that resonate, because that's what's the urgent need at the moment. But one is not separate from the other. Your relationship affects your financial abundance. Your financial abundance affects your relationship. So it all stretches through the book. But I want them to trust their own intuition and go exactly where they feel led, and then expect the unexpected, because one thing will shift the other. And what I want everybody to know is that you get to have it all. You get to have the second cookie. You get to have abundance in all areas. It's not selfish. If we move forward and we trust and we really step into alignment and give ourselves permission to really grow beyond our wildest imagination, I want people to step into this mission with me of making the world a better place. And we can only do that if we have resources. We can only do that if we heal our hearts. We can only do that if we're trusting our intuition and our spirit, right? So it all goes together. It's this beautiful dance. And it's going to look different for everybody, because I want you to march to your own drum.
I love it. I love it. Well, I put your link down below there, and it's also in the description of our conversation tonight as well. And so you can go there and find everything that Jen has to offer, including the links to the books. Anything else that you want to point them towards while they're on that link, Jen?
No, that's perfect. Everything is there, jenpiceno.com/links. Just pop around, reach out to me. I like to know what's going on in people's lives, and I will do my best to share with you my unfiltered experience.
That's the best way to be, in my opinion, because I mean, then people are getting authentic Jen in that way, so it's good. So finishing out the show tonight, Jen, if we have anybody watching this evening that's like, look, this idea of doing things my way sounds great, but I just, I don't think I can do this. I don't know that I can do this. What would you say to that person?
That's bullshit.
Yes.
That's what I would say. That's the unfiltered Jen, because it is. That's a way of allowing our own doubts to keep us from stepping into the highest potential that you're capable of. And it's really like, go after the dreams, go after the desires, stretch your limits. If anybody's going to hold you back, don't let it be you. Don't let it be.
So good. Do you hear that, people? Brittany's like, yeah, it's happening. So good. So good. Jen, thank you so much for being here tonight. This has been wonderful. Exceeded my every expectation from what we talked several months ago. So really excited to have had this conversation with you tonight. And I highly recommend everybody go get your hands on Jen's books, especially Wealth Codes. I feel the energy of it, and I don't even have it yet. I think it's going to be life-changing for anybody that reads it.
Well, thank you so much. And we need to have another coffee, like offline, because I know that you are just one of my soul sisters. I know it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It needs to happen. But thank you so much again for being here tonight, my new friend. And I appreciate you. And I'm so glad, like I said, that we got a chance to do this. And certainly glad that you're doing things your way and changing the world, because you are.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, you guys. Thank all of you who were here tonight. So good to see some of you guys. Brittany, Mandy, Juju, Mr. Jackson, Frank, lots of people hanging out with us this evening. And of course, all of my fabulous replay viewers, thank you so much for popping by as well. I appreciate you so very much. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas, and I'll be back in 2 Tuesdays for another episode of My Way, Conversations with Entrepreneurs Doing Business Outside the Box. And we'll see you next time.